Thank you ICBC for having us here today. So my name is Kai Friedrich Niermann. I'm a lawyer here in Germany since 2003, working in the cannabis space since 2017, consulting hemp companies, medical cannabis import companies, CBD companies, and I'm the legal advisor of the European Industrial Hemp Association, which submitted these novel food applications for authorizing CBD oils as novel food. And I welcome our fellow panelists. We have to my left Dr. Philipp Göbel. Philipp is managing director of Demikan, a German pharmaceutical company specializing in the production and distribution of medical cannabis. With his expertise in the field of pharma, he's now actively involved in shaping the future of the German cannabis industry. Zita Schubert. Zita serves as the General Secretary of the European Medical Cannabis Association, OIMCA, and is a prominent lawyer in the cannabis industry. Her legal knowledge and experience in the pharma industry provide valuable insights into the regulatory landscape and international aspects of the cannabis industry. Daniel Heyman, lawyer from MME Legal. Daniel Heyman is a lawyer at MME Legal, specializing in regulatory and compliance issues related to cannabis. With his expertise, he assists companies in navigating the legal complexities of the cannabis industry and advises on strategic business decisions. And we welcome Bob Hauben from the US. He's a renowned figure in the cannabis industry, serving as the co-chair of the Cannabis Industry Group and member in charge of the Clark Hill Denver office. With his extensive experience in cannabis law, he provides valuable insights into the global cannabis market and its legal landscape. This was done by ChatGPT, so it works. Let's see what we can eat of the questions. So we heard a lot of the latest developments in Germany today, Pillar 1, Pillar 2. I won't reiterate on that. I will give you a quick overview of the history of cannabis in Germany. So the latest reform we had was in 1996, where hemp where farmers were allowed again to cultivate hemp on their fields. Before 1996, even that was prohibited. That was the big reform from 1996. What they forget were the seeds. So they said the trading of seeds is not allowed if it is for an unlawful purpose, and only farmers are allowed to sell seeds, rather than in the Netherlands and in the Czech Republic. They are allowed to sell seeds. That was the first big disadvantage in 1996, and there was one provision in the new law called misuse of intoxication has to be ruled out. And this provision caused a lot of trouble, still right now. Then there was long time there was nothing from 1996 till 2014. 2014, the first patients were granted their exemption for using cannabis as a medicine. We started with 1,000 patients about that time, and there was this lawsuit of this patient who applied or who wanted to grow his own cannabis on his balcony to provide himself with cannabis as a medicine. He won this case finally in the last instance, and the German government didn't like that every patient can grow his cannabis on his own balcony. So they set up a whole law in 2017, the Cannabis as Medicine Act. As I said, we started with 1,000 patients. Now we have probably 200,000, 250,000 patients. No one knows exactly because these figures are not documented. We have imports last year, 25 tons of medical cannabis were imported to Germany. We had a domestic production about 1.5, 2 tons altogether with all these 3 domestic cultivators. We're talking about a total revenue in the market of probably 300 million euros, according to the reimbursement figures. But still, this number is just a guess. It's not documented what's really how big the size of the market really is. So a small market still. And these are one figures, but I want to tell you also the real world here. In February 2023, I had 3 court cases. And the criminal offense was the trading of CBD oil. In February, within 3 weeks, 1 acquittal, 1 sentence was 8 months on probation, and the other one was 19 months without probation. So this is the reality, besides 180,000 consumers having criminal proceedings by police and then shut down by the prosecutor. So that's the situation we have right now. Philip, let's start with you. The most important thing is, of course, as we heard many times this morning, cannabis will be removed from the Narcotic Act. This is a milestone. This is a milestone for all the CBD traders, which are prosecuted right now, the CBD flower traders, CBD oil traders. This is a milestone for the consumers and probably a milestone for the medical cannabis industry. Philip, what do you make of this draft? What do you think, what potential can that be for your company? Tell us a little bit about Demican and what you make of it and what the chances and options of that.
Yeah, so Demican is the only German company who won one of the 3 licenses back then in 2018, 2019 from the government. So we produce for the government right now 1 ton here in Germany. We also process imports, obviously, because we are not allowed to grow anything in Germany, which we then can sell also to the German market, which we obviously see as a big disadvantage, but that's how it is right now in Germany. Obviously, what you just mentioned, Kai, in terms of the draft which has been leaked, I think there's quite some potential. If you have been at Mary Jane, you have seen maybe some talks as well. The market says, okay, it will grow in size in terms of 3 to 10 times. So I think there will be a huge growth. In the beginning, it may be a bit limited by the number of prescriptions or doctors who are willing to prescribe, but I think as we remove the stigma from cannabis, this obviously will lead to a market growth. And we ourselves prepared for that. So in terms of obviously a good supplier network, that we are able to have good medical flowers to be delivered to Germany on the one hand, and obviously logistical wise also to get it distributed to the pharmacies, because I think this will be then, when the market grows, obviously a certain bottleneck. Next to that, I think you didn't mention yet the social clubs, which are also part of the first column, as they call it in Germany, so that first draft of the law. We really are eager to see what will happen there when they may start growing as well. It's not yet clear how exactly it will happen, but we just can say that we have enough space at our facility. We have 12 hectares in total and 30,000 square meters of facility buildings, where also we may enable social clubs, obviously, to grow cannabis at very high standards. And I think that is very important to say, let's stick to the medical standards which we have in order to ensure high product quality, because we have seen many different products, I would say, to keep it neutral in Germany. And I think to stick to that quality scheme is very important. And we are very open to support those cannabis clubs as well. So I think there will be a major change with that first column, so taking it out of the narcotics law, which will definitely grow the market in terms of medical cannabis, but also obviously in terms of the social clubs.
Do you think that the numbers of prescription will increase? Just by the fact that it is removed, that it's not a narcotic anymore?
Yes, maybe some of you don't know exactly the German system. So a narcotic prescription is a serialized prescription. So the doctors need to apply to obtain that block of prescriptions and can't get like 100,000 because they are limited somehow. And so they're very restrictive on how to prescribe medical cannabis right now. And in the pharmacies, the workload to handle narcotics is also tremendous, and for ourselves as well. So we need to do a full inventory twice a year. It's a nightmare when you really got to do that and count every single gram. So I think with taking it out of the narcotics law, many hurdles which are there right now in the market will fall, and we will be able to serve more patients adequately with good product.
Are you in direct contact with physicians saying if that will move from the narcotic, we will be more openly prescribe cannabis then, or is that not a topic?
Well, we see that they will get more open, so that is like first feedback we got. And I think obviously then at the same time, you may have seen that on Friday, Germany passed a law that the reimbursement of cannabis products will also be eased. So I think these two factors in combination will lead that the market will grow and will open new opportunities.
But you can't give a more exact estimation on what's happening.
Currently, we don't have more exact estimations. As I said, I mean, estimates are between factor 3 to 10. I think it will take some time. It's education, about educating doctors as well, but it will definitely lead to a growth of the market.
Good. Zita, tell us a bit about OIMCA. What are you doing with this organization, and what do you make of these new developments in Germany in terms of medical and social clubs?
First, I want to thank you for the invitation to be here, and I'm really delighted to speak in front of all of you. EUMCA is not a standard industrial organization, but we are a kind of one-voice approach, which means from the pharmaceutical industry, of doctors' association, but more important, patient organization. And I think Kai mentioned it so nicely that at the end, the reason why you all are sitting here is based on the Supreme Court decision, which one patient fought through. And as Gosha and Fleta mentioned before, this happened in all the other countries. I don't know how much you are engaged in this kind of field, but I think this is worthwhile a consideration. The second one is I would just like to respond to this narcotic situation, because I think this is a very big question mark. The route to reimbursement is a prescription, and the route for a product is to be in a status of a prescription, which means the narcotic status gives a prescription, gives reimbursement. So my question mark is, if it's not a narcotic anymore, like CBD, which is also not a prescription product and not reimbursed, what will happen with cannabis in the medicinal field? And here I think there will be a big question mark opening, and when you heard before the political discussion, they will try to fix it. Well, we have the whole health insurance companies, 130 I think at present, who will not be really the ones to bring it forward. So to fix something which has been lost is again a process of years. And you might find yourself in a few months or years pretty disappointed when the prescription might not come, because I don't know what kind of prescriptions will then happen. And to feel pity with doctors to make a prescription on narcotics who daily prescribe fentanyl, abestral, and all the opiates is maybe not clear to me. Maybe somebody knows more about it, but talking with the doctors' associations, I never saw that this is a hurdle. And not to have it as a narcotic, does it delete the memory that it is a narcotic and has some harm at a doctor's perspective? I think this is questions which would have been maybe also interesting to ask a doctor who is unfortunately not here today, but I think I would clarify that before moving something forward, which might be maybe a release for the cannabis clubs, but to my personal assessment are pretty far away. And I think it was very nicely mentioned also before that there are several federal states who already told that they will not allow it, and the same with the pilot project. So I think there are so many hurdles piling up in a lot of kind of visionary development. So I really strongly recommend to think about the existing possibilities, which are legal, which are clear, which are accessible, and maybe why all your companies are presently on the market here is to be in a system which is reimbursing a very important medical treat, which has an unbelievable opportunity for unmet medical need in more than 44 diseases, which are presently defined.
May I just ask a question as well?
Oh, please.
Okay.
Happy to do so.
Why do you say that removing cannabis from the Narcotics Act might have implications for doctors not prescribing it or prescribing?
Because they are not on the prescription list anymore.
Which prescription list?
How do you think that drugs come on? We have I don't want to go too deep into pharma, which is my background, but they are over-the-counter products, which are not reimbursed. They are medicinal preparations, which are not reimbursed. And then we have products which are by legislation reimbursed. And these are, for example, narcotics. And as cannabis is not yet a marketing authorization process, which went through the GBA to be listed in the prescription, I don't understand under which kind of status it will be reimbursed then.
Okay, interesting. Zita, what do you think of this conflict between dried flowers and finished products? What's your point on that?
I think that dried flowers had an absolute authorization to be on the market. I have spoken with so many doctors who were so delighted to have a quick reaction medication against heavy pains. And this is not comparable to anything what is presently on the market. I just take one sample, cluster headache. I don't know if anybody had heard about it, but this is something, as soon as it starts, people are ready to commit suicide. And there's no medication who is stopping this kind of heavy pain. And I think we have about 3 million people who with heavy pain, and we have percentage. I can recommend to you University of Essen is here in the lead for for this cluster headache with a big reach through Germany. And the wave of flowers is giving during minutes a relief. And this is the first time they receive a medication which is working so quick. And I'm sure there's also another one which we did not have, and unfortunately we are missing data, but I think it is pretty clear, having such a long prohibition time, that we cannot generate data so quickly. But this is what I see also as our task, is to speak to regulators to find a way, like we found it for all other medical challenges, a kind of registration path which enables you to bring a product as quickly on the market, maybe a marketing authorization under condition, maybe with a patient registry. And we are in discussion with several regulators who are really listening to such kind of proposals. But also not to forget, a commercial part is to have some kind of data safety which allows you not to be replicated. So I'm understanding, being here a few days, and also that sometimes you are desperate about difficulties, but maybe you may take it also as a chance. But everything which is difficult is not impossible. And everything which is not impossible is reachable, is a strategy, and is a strategy of your self-protection, and make it for competition maybe a little bit difficult. And you might find yourself in a niche as pharma does it. And you might say, oh, what have I to do with pharma? But you are pharma. You produce pharmaceuticals. You are in pharma. Welcome you. In a business which is so wonderful to treat patients, to have this wonderful experience, to be part of this healing system, and maybe one day everybody of us will be patient and will be very grateful for these options. And I spoke with doctors, they are very happy to have more options in their toolbox to treat patients. So I do not see resistance against flowers.
Well, what do you think of these cannabis clinics coming online here in Germany? Is that something you support with your organization? Or?
Well, I think that presently the German clinical acts are very clear about what they consider clinics, and we have the full provision, etc. So I think, I will not put a statement on that. I know too few about their processes and how they work on that, but I think that talking to regulators, it is also seen critical.
Okay. Daniel, Switzerland has is timely ahead of us in Germany in terms of model projects. We are thinking about introducing model projects here in Germany. Please tell us, how long did that last? Did that take from the first day of the decision of let's have a model projects till they really became implemented in Switzerland? And what can Germany may learn from your experiences?
So much. Well, no, in fact, it's funny because we've been watching very closely what's happening in Germany for a month now. And it was quite a disappointment to see in which direction it goes, and especially the opening up of recreational markets. So we understand there's going to be 2 tiers. The second tier here in Germany is what we already implemented in Switzerland. It started, I would say, around 2017, when the Federal Committee for Addiction Issues issued a report claiming, and rightly so, that drug policy in Switzerland has failed, period. And they took, for example, Portugal as a model, and other countries where there is a more open approach to narcotics in general. And that led to 2 movements. On the one hand, medical cannabis was opened up further, and last year was implemented a change in law whereby every doctor now can prescribe medical cannabis. You no longer need a special permit from the Federal Office of Public Health. So that's one thing. We all know the issues. Doctors don't prescribe it. They don't know how. All these issues are there in Switzerland as well. But we hope it's going to change soon. And there's more and more creative solutions to tackle that. On the other hand, there's a movement that opened up and the realization of politicians that they need to do something about this recreational market. In Switzerland, there's give or take 300 to 500,000, depending who you ask, regular cannabis consumers, of which 100,000 claim they take it for medical purposes, and of which 200 to 400 take it for are consuming for recreational purposes, and that's a lot if you consider that the entire population is 8 or 9 million. So really we're a population where cannabis is very pervasive throughout the society, and also I would say relatively open. We have held already in the 90s, we've had a very open market, circumvention of certain laws where people were able to buy cannabis in scented bags. Okay, so you would buy this scented bag in a shop, perfectly open. You would ask which strain, and you would buy it for $100. You would buy a little bag, and people were smoking it openly. Long story short, it's really only since about 1.5 to 2 years that the law has been enacted, and it led to a change in the Narcotics Act. And let me read you now quickly what it says and what the framework is, and from that I'll give you some more flavor. So, after consulting the cantons and communes, we have cantons, concerned, the Health Ministry may authorize scientific pilot trials involving narcotics containing an effective concentration of cannabinoids. What that means, I will tell you in a minute. A, that are limited in terms of location, time, and subject matter, that allow findings to be made on the impact of new regulations on the use of these narcotics for non-medical purposes and on the health of participants, that are conducted so as to ensure that the protection of health and of minors and the protection of public order and public safety, and in which, if possible, cannabis products are used that are of Swiss origin and that comply with the rules of Swiss organic farming. So there are certain limitations here, as you see. One of the limitation is location has to be limited to a certain municipality. It cannot go and be over all of Switzerland. That's not possible. Time is 5 years plus an option for an extension of 2 years. Subject matter has to be clearly within a scientific scope, and usually in the context of and with the support of a research institution. So it's not an easy quick fix. It's not such a quick thing to just say we're going to do a pilot project. You need to have money. You have to finance a scientific study. And usually it's quite capital and time intensive. So I wouldn't underestimate how complicated it is. And everybody here in Germany, that's what you could learn from us maybe, is if you're interested to conduct such a study, don't wait until Pillar 2 falls into place. Come to Switzerland and see how it already works and do your homework. Then findings to be made, well, again, the scope has to be defined. The idea is to analyze health, psychological health, physical health. In addition to that, consumer behavior is one thing that is being analyzed, youth protection, all these things. Just define your scope very clearly, and then you may be able to proceed with that. And in the end, the way it works now, there's 5 or 6 different model projects that already have been approved and are getting into motion now. The first one was in Basel, and it's a dispensary in a pharmacy, so patients can sign up to the study. It's a few hundred people. We were always concerned because many of these people, they have to give their name, their address, they have to report back on a regular basis. There's data being collected on these people. And we always said before, me including, I was completely wrong, that people will not do it. People already are, cannabis readily available, they can buy. Why sign up for this and go all this length? And the reality is that it was pretty much sold out, in a few days. It was just filled, no problem, everybody wanted. And the main reason for that is that people want to get clean product. There's an excellent track and trace solution that is implemented in Switzerland in conjunction with a privately held company that won a tender from the Ministry of Health, essentially to conduct track and trace So it's very transparent. And one of the biggest issues in Switzerland today is that you have cannabis products out there, and cannabis is probably one of the most dangerous drugs, period, in the market today, because a lot of it is spiced up and has synthetic cannabinoids and synthetic THC and is incredibly potent, and people don't know what they're buying. So the interest was really, really there to get access to these trials, and we're all now waiting for the Zurich trial to commence, where we have 21 points of sale, including 10 pharmacies and 10 social clubs. So let's see how that rolls out.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's what we all fearing, that we have these model projects implemented within the next 5 years till we have defined the study design, the financing secured, etc. And then another 5 years evaluation period, so maybe there will be legalization in Germany in the next decade.
May I just add one thing to that? The model projects are just one layer. There's another layer in Switzerland that is going on, which is on the political arena, because there was a parliamentary initiative in parallel that has been launched, and essentially the parliament or the health commissions that are relevant in the context already approved a full legalization of cannabis in Switzerland. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen very soon, but it does mean that there's
Since I know you mentioned this initiative and nothing's happening.
Well, there's a subcommittee now in Switzerland that is actually already working on drafting the legislation, together obviously with the Federal Office of Public Health. And I very much hope that they're looking at Germany and that they say we can be a bit more courageous than that.
Good. Bob, you heard that. No commercial route in Germany. Why did you still come?
That's a great question. No, Germany needs to be comfortable with a medical system that has elements of a commercial adult use system. That's a fact. You have to use from a commercial standpoint. And let's face it, we are all about having access to patients. We're all about a medical framework here. But for businesses to survive, what has to happen? You guys know the answer to this question. For a business to survive, there has to be an economic model. For there to be an economic model, you need to have purchasers on a regular basis for all of the wares that come out of all of the expensive infrastructure. So Germany needs to get comfortable with this notion that it's going to have a medical model that is slippery. You know what I mean by slippery? Meaning that it is in certain ways masquerading as an adult use program. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be called adult use for us to be comfortable with it having adult use elements. It just has to be legal and regulated so that the purchaser is buying something that's consistent and quality driven. That's the most important point. And my US perspective is tainted a bit because that's how it started in the United States in most states, right? Look at California as a pioneer. Look at Oregon, Colorado, where I call home. Colorado, once we had 100,000 patients registered in a medical marijuana program, it was game over. It was a commercial regulated system. We have in Colorado what we call a severe pain catch-all, meaning if I have a migraine, you talk about the cluster headaches. If I have back pain, I qualify to purchase as much cannabis as I'm lawfully allowed to purchase. That opened the floodgates because I didn't really have to have a technical medical condition. I just had to have an experience of pain validated by a physician. Well, if I wanted to game the system, if I wanted to go to a doctor and say, "Doc, my back hurts, can you give me a card to let me purchase cannabis?" 9 out of 10 times the doctor's going to do that. So the system became a bit strained. But what did it do? It created the financial and economic legs underneath of it, which were necessary for it to survive. You can't just start a system, have everybody line up at the start line, build infrastructure, and then give a trickle of patients to the existing system that needs patients' consumer dollars. So I'm also a bit jaded, Kai, in that medical marijuana in the United States doesn't really mean medicine. That doesn't mean that there's not a medicinal benefit to cannabinoids. We all know that's true. I hope we all know that's true. That's why we're here. It just means that the purchaser has to qualify under a condition. It just qualifies the purchaser. Another way to qualify the purchaser is to say you must be 21 years old or over. It's the exact same thing. So medical cannabis in the US simply means safe, consistent access to cannabis for whatever reason I should choose to use it. And I think that's the notion that we need to get comfortable with, particularly here in Germany. It's a fascinating experiment, Kai, and that's why I'm here, is to see it happen in real time, obviously to hang out and see great friends and to see what's happening, because it happens uniquely country by country. Two other points I'd like to make quickly, and that is, you have to understand a jurisdiction's why. The reason that the jurisdiction legalizes cannabis, it's critical, because not any jurisdiction legalizes it for the same purpose. Sometimes it's for adult use, sometimes it's criminal justice reform, sometimes it's social justice reform, sometimes it's because you need an economic driver, you need job creations. Don't look at any of those reasons and go, oh, that's not why we're doing it, and look down on it. It doesn't matter what you think. It matters what the sentiment is in that jurisdiction. So you have to understand that. And then the last thing I'll note, at least now, is there's really 4 models for cannabis legalization. There's 4 policy lanes. They exist already. We don't need to invent them. There's the industrial lane, speaks for itself. The second lane, FDA or the equivalent approved formulations, pharma. The third lane, nutraceutical products, products that come from the cannabis plant that are for health-based purposes that don't produce an intoxicating effect. The fourth lane, OTC. You understand OTC, over the counter? OTC cannabis. In Germany, you mix all 3 of the last ones. That's not sustainable. You can't mix over-the-counter cannabis, FDA-approved medicines, and nutraceuticals. They have to be separated because the systems already exist. Policymakers, bureaucrats, business owners are used to those 3 lanes existing independently. Right now, you throw them all together under the guise of medical, and maybe just a little bit with this social club experiment that's coming, that it begins to open up that OTC lane just a little bit, just enough. So that's the future, not because I say it, but I think it matters that it's coming from a lawyer because we're trained to respect and understand existing policy frameworks. Those frameworks exist already. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. So what I take away from this is the medical cannabis market in the US were the facilitator, were facilitating the recreational market, in fact. And you had also like model projects or social clubs. Did they play any role in the US during the legalization? Short answer, please.
We still struggle in the U.S. with this idea of consumption, where to consume. Social clubs, having an element of consumption allowance. We don't really embrace that in the United States. We're starting to get our heads around that. Nevada, Las Vegas will be an interesting way to see how this evolves. Other states have evolved a little bit, but the social club model is not something that's really in vogue and really not understood. Policymakers want to legalize it, but they want a very tightly controlled supply chain down to the consumer who does what? Pays tax money. That's all the governments care about.
Got it. Yeah. Michael, we have 1 minute left or is the panel over soon?
One question, if possible, please.
And then we're over. Yeah?
Yes.
12:50, yes.
Let's hear it for Kai Newman and everybody, first of all. We have time for a quick question. Not a long history of your personal use with cannabis before you discovered it. Just one. Anybody have one quick question? There's a microphone right there for you, sir, or Michael will run up to you. He's going.
I'm gonna hurry up.
He's going. That's right. He's wearing the comfortable shoes. Look how his hair bounces in the wind.
Yeah, thanks. Just a very quick question. How do you think, especially in Germany and Europe, will we go into the direction of clinical trials, as currently in Germany, cannabis is an unlicensed medicine. So will we get cannabis flowers that have an MAH, a marketing authorization? Or will there be different models, maybe using observational data, real-world evidence, or like a shortcut? Or will it just stay as it is at the moment to be unlicensed? Thanks.
Question for Philip or Sita?
Yeah, I think for flowers it will be difficult because they are not protectable, and there are so many flowers right now in the German market that's really difficult to get a group of patients together to really get some data which will talk for itself. For extracts, I think it is different. There you have a bit more of differentiation, and I know there are already some studies going on, and there will be more studies going on to gather data and show exactly what effect has it for patients in different indications.
Thank you.
I would add to that there's never anything which is impossible. In my career in pharma, we started like medical gases, impossible to register. Biologicals, impossible to register. I can name a few other parts. At the end, they have been registered. There is the correlation, proof of concept in a product. So the indication and the product has to fit. And if you have here proof of concept, then happy days. And once I just want to say something to add before. My pizza seller says you can make the best pizza in town, but if nobody knows, you will not sell one piece. And maybe you think about the situation in Germany. So if the doctors are not knowing what you have, they will not prescribe it. And I think there are a lot of wonderful models who do a perfect job on that. So if you look for that, I think you will find your way, and a very successful, high-margin way to be in the market.
Thank you all so very much. That was fantastic. One more time.